Hello and welcome to another episode of Leaders of Transformation. Today we're going to talk about mastering your emotions. Such an important topic. I know this firsthand myself. I think we can all appreciate that there have been times in our life where maybe our emotions got the best of us. Well, we've got a guest here who is going to talk about how to master your emotions 1 minute at a time. And I am really, really excited about this interview because Masha Malka and I have actually been talking about doing this interview for a while. We've had to reschedule a number of times, both because of personal situations in my life, and then I was sick, and then she was sick. But you know what? Good things come to those who wait. And so I just know that this conversation is going to be super, super valuable. So Masha, welcome to Leaders of Transformation. We're excited that you're here today.
Oh, thank you so much, Nicole. I'm really excited to be talking to you finally.
Yes, yes. And I read Masha's book a while back, and we're going to talk about that. And it's just really, really excellent. Shout out to Kathleen Gage and Natalie Rainey, who works for Kathleen, who actually introduced us, because I wouldn't have gotten to meet Masha without that. And so I always appreciate, sometimes I forget to do it and do a shout out to the people who connect me, because probably most of my guests, probably now 80% of my guests, come through referrals. And so sometimes I forget, but I really do appreciate all the people that actually refer me to other people that then become guests on the show. It's awesome. Appreciate you. And also to our listeners and viewers that you're out there, we're excited that you're here, and we're going to make sure that this conversation is super valuable for you as a leader of transformation, or someone that is aspiring to be a leader of transformation. You want to make a difference in the world, and you need some tools and some inspiration to be able to do that. And also even just maybe some connections. And so afterwards, we're going to make sure that all the links to Masha's information where you can connect with her are going to be available. And if you haven't already done so, go on leadersoftrandsformation.com, where we have over 200 episodes, 215, 220 episodes, somewhere in there by the time this is released. Up there. And so amazing people to connect with who are making a huge impact in the world. So highly encourage you to do that. Let me give you a little bit of background on Masha. Masha is living proof that of what can happen if human potential is actually allowed to express itself. Leaving the only life and country that she had known, Masha Malka's life was turned upside down at the age of 17 when her family fled the Soviet Union as Jewish refugees. Now, fast forward. She has become a best-selling author and founder of the 1 Minute Coach educational system. She's worked as an executive coach for over 15 years, has built a successful import and distribution company, taught business leadership, won ballroom competitions, and received her master's degree in higher education while raising 3 children. Her newest book, The 1 Minute Coach, is the one that I read, 1 Minute Coach to Mastering Your Emotion, addresses the timely topic of how emotions either serve us or hold us back. And so with that in mind, yes, and thank you for showing a picture of that, Masha, for those
Welcome.
who are watching the video. Great, great book. It really, when I was reading it, because there's a lot of books that you come across my desk, and they're usually in the similar type of format. Well, in this case, it is literally 1 minute chapters, and she's bringing in this idea of accelerated learning, which I don't hear a lot of people talking. There's certain people that are talking about it, but it's just unique the way she actually incorporated it into the book. And so highly effective in terms of gathering information and applying it in your life, which is important, of course, to accelerated learning. So Masha, let's start off with maybe an obvious question, but I think it's an important one to start off with, is where do emotions actually come from?
Oh, that was a long introduction. Okay, the emotions, yes, very important question, because if we want to master something, we want to understand the nature of it. We want to get over the lack of confidence and the lack of control, which is what happens. Why we want to put the emotions, push them away, because we get scared because we don't know what they are. So, very good question. Now, you might have heard that statistically over 90%, which is incredible, over 90% of what we do, what we think, how we react is habitual. So it's habitual because throughout our life, things happen. We analyze it, we make conclusions, we compartment it into a certain place and said, okay, this is how you react to this is how you feel about that, in order to protect ourselves, because we don't want to get hurt if we got hurt. So we learn, okay, not to go there or to react like this. And that's how we learn. So a lot of it eventually becomes habitual, which is neither good or bad, but it's just important to understand. And so most of the things that happen to us, they trigger from the past experience a certain emotion. That's why you would see that people would react differently to the exact same situation. And so if you understand that nothing really has meaning until you give it the meaning, and you give it the meaning based on how you filter that particular situation based on what you have experienced before. So that's how the emotion suddenly comes, because it's triggered by something that you connect to what happened before. And then once you feel the emotions, you start thinking. And the thought process then either accelerate that emotion, makes it bigger and stronger, and just like creates that spiral of exploding the emotion. Or in the case when you become aware and you actually realize what's happening, then you choose. Then you start to you choose whether you are going to give attention to this particular emotion, because maybe it needs attention, or you're going to choose not to give it attention. Then it just goes. Emotion. Another. So that's one important point to understand. Another important point, very important point, is to separate yourself from the emotion. So there is you, and there is an emotion. And basically, emotion is just like okay. If we go a little bit backwards, everything is energy. Everything has vibration. So emotion is just one certain energetic vibration that you bring into your life, either by the trigger of what happened or just because you connect to that particular vibration. So the emotion comes, and if you give it focus, it stays, becomes stronger, becomes maybe even a part of you, or it just flows away. So that's where the choice comes. That's where the control comes. The control is in the awareness that you are not that emotion. And it's very important also to recognize the language that we use when we talk about our feelings. So rather than saying, I'm so mad, I'm so angry, I am disappointed, you say, I feel angry, I feel disappointed. In this moment, I'm feeling, basically in this moment, I'm choosing to feel angry. And you have every right to feel every emotion. We're not talking here about let's not feel anything or let's just block everything. On the contrary, when I talk about mastering emotions, I talk about feeling the emotions fully, being open to the emotions. That's what makes us human, to become friends with the emotions, not to be scared of them. So we are entitled to feel whatever emotions. But then the control, the mastering of emotions actually happens when you have awareness of the feeling of what you're feeling, and then the choice as to what you're going to do with that emotion.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting that you say this. I remember years ago, there was a group that I was facilitating, and there was a woman in there that had experienced a lot of depression. And when we first started this group, and it was through my church, and I didn't know her from before. We got to know, we were having this chat and getting to know each other. And she used an interesting term, which I'd never heard anybody use. And then she said, my depression has been getting to me lately, and I thought, well, that's so interesting. You talk about the power of language. I said, my depression, that's interesting. You've made it your identity. And as a result, it's going to be really hard to get rid of, to eliminate that, because it's actually part of you now. So when you talk about separating, and I love what you said there about, it's not about not feeling the emotions, because I know there's a number of people that have said, it's like you just feel nothing, right? It's this idea of being so zen that everything just passes through. Well, I tried that for a little while, And it didn't work for me because I felt blah. I felt like I wasn't experiencing any, I wasn't enjoying the richness of life because I was just, like flatlining. It was like monotone. And so I love what you said there about it's about experiencing the emotions, but then letting them pass through and not taking them on. The way I heard it is it's like not taking them on and owning them, especially when you say like, I feel so angry, or, that's different than I am angry. Now I'm taking it on as I'm possessing it. And
Exactly.
another thing that you said there is about the control of emotions and our thoughts. And I've been talking a lot about this recently with people because I just have noticed how often, like with clients, they'll say, I'm happy, I'm sad, I'm this, I'm that, and not realizing that they can actually control and choose. So if a thought comes in, they actually have the choice as to whether or not they want to entertain that or not. And just even making them aware of that has been super powerful. So I love your approach to it. And I'd love to dive a little further into it in terms of when it comes to emotions, talk about depression or anxiety or any number of these emotions. And I personally have felt a lot of emotions recently, with having multiple losses in my life, a lot of transition, just feeling all this motion. And there is a natural inclination to want to sedate that, to want to avoid it, to push it away and saying, I don't want to feel this. Like even me, I've been sick. That's part of the reason why we delayed the interview was I was sick and then you were sick, different things happen. And what I was noticing even just recently, so this is all very timely, is my natural inclination to want to do something that's going to numb that and to push it away. And I think that's what we do a lot in society is we're kind of encouraged to sedate, whether that be through entertainment, whether that be through the typical sex, drugs, alcohol, or maybe it's just sleep. I want to sleep and hope that I wake up and this is all gone at the end, when I wake up, or eating, different ways that we sedate ourselves to try to numb the emotion that we're feeling because we're not addressing it. Can you talk a little bit more about that?
Definitely, and very, very important question, and that you're raising it, very important. It is really upsetting to me to know how many people are on medication or antidepressants, or just doing something that, like exactly like you said, to numb the emotion. Why? Because it hurts, and it hurts, and if you don't know what to do with it, you don't want to be walking around hurting. So you're looking for ways to get rid of that pain. But in a way, the analogy I would use is if you put a finger on a burning stove, it hurts, you take the finger away. In this case, you leave the finger on, but you take the painkiller so it doesn't hurt. So, but the finger is still on the stove because the emotion is there to indicate to you something is not working. Something requires your attention. And sometimes it hurts a little bit. And if you don't pay attention to that, it'll hurt more. And it'll hurt more until it really, hurting to the point that you have to medicate yourself. But that finger is still on the stove. The problem did not disappear. You just taking the sensation away. Meanwhile, you're destroying your health. And that's exactly what happens. If we basically just medicate or numb the emotion, we don't deal with the situation, then that emotion, if we're talking about metaphysically, it's the energy that is stuck in your system. It is stuck there and it wants to get out. That's why it hurts. It just wants out. Just let me out, deal with it. And you're keeping it in because why? Because you don't know how to get it out. We're not taught in schools how to deal with it. So, it's natural that people do what they do because they don't know how. So a stuck energy eventually needs to get out somehow. And the way it gets out is in terms of sickness and disease. And the longer we're holding on to something and the stronger the emotion, we're talking about emotions of guilt or shame or all kinds of, the very strong emotions that are stuck there, they translate into sometimes chronic disease, cancer, things like that, because it needs to come out somehow. So if we don't release the emotion the way I teach to do it, then we get sick. And there's a lot of, like Louise Hay, a lot of people probably know about her work on how listening to our bodies, and what we listen to is we scan the body for the emotion. And if we learn to do it on a regular basis, then it doesn't need to escalate to the point that we need to medicate. If we get in a habit of clearing out whatever is there, and rewinding a little bit to what you said about being in Zen, not feeling emotion, there is a time for that, there is a time for that. And I do that personally every time before I go to sleep. And that actually helps me sleep through the night. A lot of people get jealous, like, how can you just go to sleep and sleep for 8 hours? Because I clear the emotional charge of the day. I don't delete everything that happened. I don't forget everything that happened. But what I delete is the emotional charge, because emotions have like an electrical charge. And if we hold on to it one day, another day, year after year, that's why we get so tired. And we can think straight. With aging is nothing to do with the years. Aging has to do with our inability to clear our system. Just like we clear through nutrition, we also need to clear through emotions. We need to get rid of the stuff that we don't need. So before I go to sleep, I do this technique. I will share with you. And
please. I was going to ask you to do that. That's perfect.
Yes.
Yeah.
No, of course. I want to give, specific, sometimes something that people can walk away with. Basically, what I do is like, if we're talking about a particular day, then I think of a particular episode that just happened. And it's important to understand both positive and negative. You just delete, you just neutralize. That's the word. You neutralize everything that happened. Because in the universe, and that's physics, everything has to be balanced. The universe doesn't judge, good, bad, it doesn't exist. We put the judgments to that, right? But it needs to get balanced. So if you put like a really high emotion, and you hold on to that high emotion, there is a lower, charge emotion that's going to balance it out. So that's why sometimes,
that's interesting. After high, we often experience that low, because that's the universe actually balancing it out. When we think that's actually wrong, and why do I feel this way? I just had the most amazing experience. Mm-hmm. Interesting.
That's why. Yeah. Yes. I've tracked it in my life over and over again. So now what I do, I neutralize even the good things. Experienced it. I enjoyed it in the moment. It was wonderful. Release, like breathe it out. So you look to the left. You think of a particular moment, you look to the left, just close your eyes. And then as you move your head from left to right, you breathe it out, and you kind of like just delete it. You like, breathe it out, gone. Look to the right, think of something, breathe it out. And you would notice physically, you'd actually feel like lighter, like calmer, like, it's just, you didn't forget anything, you didn't forget any lessons, it's still all there, but that charge kind of disappears. Before, I actually, when I started doing this technique, I went back, rewound it all the way to my childhood, all the way like to when I was a baby. I just kind of delete, all the relationships and all the things that happen when everything. It takes a few days to do that, but after that, wow, amazing. So it's a great technique to get to that neutral state, and especially before you go to sleep. So then you sleep much better, because it's not just there bothering you, at night with all kinds of thoughts.
Well, and that's interesting, because a lot of times people stay awake because they have worry. I've done that, where it's like your mind is working through what you're worrying about, or what you're not, the unresolved issue or whatever it is. But it also happens when you've had an amazing day and you're replaying this wonderful experience, and either way, you're not sleeping because your mind you've got that extra charge. Very interesting. You also bring in that, speaking of accelerated learning, is bringing in the different modalities into it. And so a lot of times I think that we think about things. It's like, gratitude, for example. People think about gratitude, but it's different to think about gratitude and to feel gratitude, and or to write it out, because now we're bringing in the other modalities of what you described is, going from left to right and breathing it out. it's also now becoming something that we're doing physically. I notice, like for myself, even visually, sometimes for me to think about something and to have it, have it create an impact. It's not enough, but when I visualize, like this emotion leaving my body and another one entering, it's like I'm actually bringing in those other modalities. Can you talk a little
Sure,
bit about
sure.
how you apply that? I know because your book is, like I said in the
Mm-hmm.
beginning, is defined in a
Really, what I
way.
wanted to say is that there's a lot of techniques and different techniques work for different people. What I want people to take away from this interview is that it is possible for you to master the emotions, to be in control of your emotions, to change your life. Because if you master your emotions, you master your life, because you communicate on a whole different level. You don't react, you don't cause breakups or disappointments because you feel like, why did I say this, why did I do that, if I could only go back and do it again. Once you learn these techniques, and it's difficult to share all the techniques in a short period of time, but the important thing is to understand that it's possible, and you need to look for, there's a lot of information out there on that, obviously in my book, which I'll talk about a bit more in a minute. If we're talking about modalities, and that's, the modalities is what you see, what you hear, what you do physically, this is like using different senses. It's always better. The more senses you use, the more effective the outcome of what you're doing. So, but we're all so different. We have different learning styles. We have different way of feeling things, or expressing the emotions, or releasing those emotions. So when you try different techniques, something would definitely work. And the great thing about actually learning these techniques is that, because unfortunately it's still not taught in the education system, and there is not it's not that common, the knowledge. It's not like people talk about the let's say the dental hygiene a lot, the importance of brushing teeth twice a day or after every meal, and flossing, and how to do it. They go explicitly, they explain, this is how you floss, this is how it is. So when it comes to emotional hygiene, nobody teaches. It's incredible. So we have healthy teeth, but unhealthy everything else.
Well, that's why you're here.
Thank you. Yeah, that's why I'm passionate about telling as many people as possible, because when you learn how to do it, it becomes exponentially, not just for your life, but because you start reacting differently. There's a whole chain reaction that doesn't happen anymore because you didn't express your anger at that moment. So they didn't express, because what you do is you take this energy and you just place it into someone else, who then place it into someone else. But instead, you learn to show gratitude, and you learn to show kindness, and you learn to show love, and then it's like you deposit that into someone else, and then because they got it from you, now they're going to give it to someone else. So it's like this big chain reaction, and then you can tell your children how to do it, and they tell their children. So it's so many benefits to learning how to deal with these emotions, that whether you like it or not, you're going to have them. So you've got to learn how to deal with them.
Well, and this podcast is all about transformation, and to creating that transformation in the world. What does it really take to do that? And what you just described, I imagine what that looks like. That's the processional effect, or the ripple effect going out of, people that know how to master their emotions, and the impact that it has on another person, and how that ripples out to the world. And that's how we raise the vibrational energy around the world. That's how one person can make a difference. And also, actually thinking about it, when you started talking in the beginning about emotions, and if we do them on automatic and we have the same emotions, how do we create transformation if we're doing the same thing over and over again? It's not going to happen. Transformation is a completely new. It's taking one thing and transforming the caterpillar into the butterfly, and the caterpillar literally needs to break down in order for that butterfly to be created. So in the same way here, our emotions we get to, And I'm a big believer in, it's not about, well, we have to figure out how to do this. It's we actually get to master our emotions. We get to learn how to do this. And what, to your point about the different modalities, is find what works for us so that we can have that outcome. And I think that's where the awareness and consciousness about it comes in as well. Now, yes, go ahead.
No, so you brought the butterfly into the conversation, and basically that bringing nature into this whole point, and just like in nature for us, it's the same. Human nature is we want everything and we want it now, and if we want to change, we want to change, and we just want to be masters, But you gotta give yourself a chance to understand that just like in nature, it takes time. It's a process. You plant the seed, and you plant the seed by making a decision. You're making a decision that I'm going to learn how to master my emotions. You planted the seed. I'm going to look for ways to do it. I'm going to look for skills how to do it. So you start the process, and then you take it one step at a time. So one way, for example, to break what you do is you want to break the pattern. You want to break the pattern, the habitual pattern. So immediately, what you can apply as soon as you finish listening to this podcast, immediately what you can do is, when something happened that you're going to react habitually, you're going to react a certain way, and it's going to happen at some point during the day, you react differently. You become aware and you do something completely different. If somebody starts getting aggressive, and usually you just walk away because you can't deal with it, then you don't walk away and you just say, I don't appreciate you talking to me this way, for example. Or on the contrary, if somebody becomes aggressive and it creates even more aggression in you and you just clash, what you do is you walk away, you breathe, and you say, okay, I'm going to do something different. So whatever it is, you decide, but do something different, break the pattern. Because once you break the pattern, it doesn't have a hold of you anymore. It doesn't control you anymore. As long as you triggered and you're led by that emotion, you don't have control. The emotion controls you. You get in control when you're choosing to do something different. That's a start.
Yeah. So I'm curious, so people can get to know a little bit more about you. Obviously, you learn this because you're passionate about it. And I'm going to guess that also comes from personal experience,
Yes.
applying it yourself. So what emotion or emotions were the ones that were the automatic for you, that response mechanism that you needed to change? How did you do that? What's your experience with that?
You're absolutely right. There's a joke going around that a coach becomes a coach because they need the most help. There's a big element of truth in that, because we usually become passionate about, to learn a lot about something because we need to find a solution. Now, for those people who believe in astrology and how we're affected and how we're born actually already very different. In my chart, everything is about me being a super emotional person, and I have been overly emotional person, and it really interfered with my quality of life. It really did. At work, in relationship, I'd overreact. I was overly sensitive, and it's just not nice, not for me and not for other people. So it has been a goal of mine for a long time. I thought I'd love to control my emotions better. And then life presented an opportunity when my relationship fell apart, which was just so unexpected and such a huge shock to my system. It threw me into this whole in a place where it took a lot of work, self-work to get out. Fortunately, I didn't get into medicating myself or drinking or drugs, and I chose not to jump into another relationship and repeat the same mistakes. So it was a conscious decision. I was already done quite a bit of work on myself, so I knew it happened. So in order for me to create a different life, a different experience, I had to become different. It's the only way we can create a different life. So for me to become different, I needed time for myself, and I needed to learn, and I needed to go through this whole process of feeling, releasing, feeling, releasing. It's like layers, layers, layers. And the outcome of that has been amazing in many ways. I learned so much. It was just really the best experience. It's always like this. The toughest and what hurts the most, at the end, you look back, and if you get through it, you look back and you say, wow, the best thing that happened to me, which is great to remember when it's happening to you and you think it's never going to end. It ends, everything ends. And if you actually do what you should be doing, you get on top of it. Like, the more it hurts, the better, the higher you bounce, because you just have to find the strength. And there was a great rabbi that said once, we're never giving an obstacle we cannot overcome. If something's happening to you, no matter how tough it is, it's because you're tougher, because you're stronger. And if you feel that it's happening to you more than others, because you have more maybe than others, because whatever's happening to you, you have the tools to deal with it, not on your own, never on your own. Don't think, you shouldn't feel, here I am by myself. Always look for help. I could not have done it without help. I had incredible support from my friends and family, and I reached out to people who specialize in helping, in this situation. So with the help of those, I managed to get to where I am today. I feel like I'm a different person. I like myself so much more now, honestly. I just, I love not reacting. Like, these things happen, I'm like, oh, I'm doing well. Like, where before I'd be like, like crying or screaming or something. Now I'm like, this is good. To get to that place, it's amazing, really, really amazing. So that's why, that's how the book came about, because all my experiences I would write, and I went through every single thing I talk about. I personally experienced it. I personally have done those techniques. I now have these groups that I work with on releasing emotions and talking about that and producing great results. I'm also a certified hypnotherapist, so I use a lot of hypnosis where we go into subconscious to help with the blockages, which is, great help as well. So I know this works because, honestly, people say that, but it's true. If I can do it, anybody can do it.
Yeah, it's funny because you're like talking to me, and of course, a little bit about what I've been going through lately, and the end of a relationship very abruptly, and right after my mother passed away, and just all of this stuff going on, and it's it's interesting that you say you don't go through anything that you can't handle with help and support, and that you're stronger than that. And when you said that, I was thinking about it and going, yeah, I know I'm stronger than it. And it's funny, there's a lot of people that have said to me, power through, just keep going. And that is great. And it's great encouragement. And I so appreciate that. And I want to make sure that as I'm going through this, I'm not just powering through, but that I'm actually processing like you're talking about, so that I'm not stuffing it down and outrunning it. As I used this analogy with a client many years ago, I said, your little voice, the little inner voice that's talking to you and all that inner dialogue chatter, the idea of mastering that isn't outrunning it. It's not like, la, 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 can't hear you, like, it's not about that. It's actually about dealing with it and transforming it and healing it. Otherwise, it's just going to come back to bite you somewhere further down the road. And
Yes.
so I'm being intentional about that, because my natural inclination is to power through and to be strong and to say, okay, I'm just going to move through this, and realizing that if I do that, I can also at the same time miss the gift that is there. And perhaps even as I'm going through this, what I'm also noticing is that, wow, if I'm feeling these things, and I'm a coach, and I have a lot of people around me who, are amazing human beings and loving and kind and wise and transformational leaders. Imagine how much other people are experiencing this even greater and may not have that support or that affirming community around them. And realizing that there's such a need out there, especially for this idea of helping people to master their emotions and experience their emotions. Because I think that also, along with mastering the emotions, is we even have a hard time experiencing emotions. And I know Tony Robbins talks about the range of emotions, and that we have the capacity to enjoy is so great. And compared to where we are, like I think it's like a dozen that we have our go-to emotions, and then the rest we miss out on. Can you talk a little bit about that? The range of emotions and how we can expand that range of emotion?
Well, you expand the range of emotion by releasing the fear of feeling the emotions, because even the positive emotions, sometimes we're scared to be really happy for various reasons. Some people don't feel that they deserve it. They not used to it. Again, it's all about the habit. Many people get in a habit of being a victim. They get in a habit of being sad. It becomes the identity, just like what you were saying in the beginning. And so what I don't want to happen when people listening to this, I don't want people to get overwhelmed, because you can easily get overwhelmed with all this information. The idea here is to understand that it's possible to control it, step by step. Some might take longer, some might get to it faster, because I don't know, it doesn't matter why. But the important point is that it is possible, and just one step at a time. That's why, like, my first book is Change Your Life 1 Minute at a Time. It's all about small steps. The analogy I like to use is, how do you eat an elephant? You eat an elephant, one bite at a time. You don't swallow the whole elephant. Yeah. So anytime you're feeling overwhelmed about anything, just focus on the next steps. So you know where you're going. Where you're going is, you want to stop getting angry all the time, or you want to stop feeling sad, or you want to stop feeling sorry for yourself. Like you choose something that is there, and you're fed up with it. You say, you know what? I've had enough of this. I deserve better. That's the first step. I deserve better. I deserve to feel good at least 80% of the time. We don't need to aim for 100. At the end of the day, we're human beings, and we're going to feel, I was going to use a better word, we're going to, not so nice from time to time, and that's okay. It's a contrast. Sometimes we need that. So, but at least 80% of the time, you want to feel good. You want to stay in a place of gratitude. You want to stay in a place, I'm blessed. My life is incredible. I've created this amazing life for myself. I'm so grateful. I'm loved. I'm loving. You want to be in that space more. So, so you know where you're going. And the only thing you need to know after that is that one step that you need to make. Just one step, one little decision. I'm going to decide today that before I go to sleep, I will list at least 10 things I'm grateful for. And I'm going to do this for 40 days in a row. Because after that, it becomes a habit. And it's an incredible habit to have. If you get in a habit to be grateful, you know that because you started this conversation with expressing gratitude to people who introduced us. And you always do that. You're really amazing with that. And that's just a habit. And when you get in a habit of being grateful, what happens? You get more of that. You get more. It's just again, it's the physics. It's how nature works. You give, you get back. You give, whatever you put out, you get back always. Whatever emotion comes out, you get that emotion back. If somebody is being rude to you, think about it. Was I rude to someone? Was I disrespectful to? If they're disrespecting you, am I disrespecting myself? Maybe by allowing someone else to disrespect me, or something. So whatever emotion that comes to you, it's a reflection of something that you need to pay attention to. That's something else, actually, another point. So if I can just take a moment to show.
Yes, I was going to say, from an application standpoint, talk about your book and what people can expect from. Because you actually have this all. I know we've talked about a lot of different things, but you actually break it all down and it's all there.
It's all
Yes.
here. It's
Yeah.
all here. It's broken down into first understanding your emotions. Again, that's how we started the conversation. You're not going to learn to control something you don't understand. You're just going to be scared of it, because if we don't understand it, we just want to run away from it. So first part of the book is understanding your emotion. Then we're talking about why we suffer and how to deal with the things that, with the negative emotions. I call them feel bad emotions and feel good emotions, because I don't want to say positive or negative, because it's a judgment. And I focus a lot on getting away from judgment. When we stop judging, if we stop judging, there'll be no more negative emotions, because, it's just a judgment of either another person or yourself or a situation. You're placing a judgment, and then it creates an emotion. So, and then we talk about feel good emotions, because we want to attract more of those. And then they talk about specific tools of how you release the emotions you don't want to feel anymore, and how you attract the emotions you want to feel. There's a bit of like metaphysics there, the energies and the magnetic field and things like that. You were saying initially that the way it's written, it's the 1 minute coach system uses accelerated learning techniques, and that works with how is the easiest way for us to take the information in, to process and to apply it. So each chapter is short. It's basically, okay, that's the section. There's an information on the left side. You have information on the right side, which is right side of the brain, action steps, and an image that helps you remember what you just read. So it's a very effective, fun and easy way to learn something, because like you said, information is everywhere. There's too much information in this day and age. Information is not power. What is power is applying the information. It's actually knowing what to do with the information you're reading. So I like to make it as easy as possible. My background is mathematics and exact science. I never learned to be a writer. So my book also, it's very to the point. Okay, this is a short bit of information. This is what you do with it. Here's information. This is what you do with it. Because that's what we need. We need just to know how to apply it. And so this is my first book, written in the same kind of way. Very effective. If I may mention that if they go to my website,
of course, please. They can, perfect time.
Which is Masha Malka, mashamalka.com. Mm-hmm. There is on the homepage, they can download a free ebook, which is a compilation of the chapters of this book. So they actually get to experience firsthand what I'm talking about. They can read it, they can apply. I chose very important chapters that they can use to apply immediately. And then if they like it, they can just go and purchase the book on Amazon anywhere in the world. And then they can connect with me as well if they want to. I would love that.
Well, and you do coaching, and you have different programs, like you mentioned, online programs and group programs. But thank you for sharing that, because I really do think that, like you said, knowledge is not power anymore. It's the applied knowledge. Actually, I heard somebody, I think it was yesterday, somebody said, knowledge is fuel. It's like you've got all this fuel. Well, yes, it is. And yet at the same time, if you have too much fuel, you'll flood the engine. So, it's really what you do with it. And it's interesting. You talk about having this science, mathematics background, and here you are being this emotional, sensitive person that is learning how to teach. It's just interesting how those things work out, so that you can bring all of the different aspects of you, the facets of you, to this work that you do. And it makes it that much more effective. And it's not just this book. You also have, like you said, your first book. And I know that's your style, is just, it's like, here's what it is and here's how you apply it. I think that's very valuable. So I encourage all our listeners, we'll make sure that all of the links to your book on Amazon, so that it's handy for people easy to find it. Also to, of course, your website, where they can get those chapters. We'll make sure that's all in the show notes.
People want to connect to me on social media. I'm quite active on social media, Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram, then please can connect.
Yeah, we'll make sure that's all there. And, Masha, so appreciate you, and I appreciate your heart. and your conciseness about, it's just like, keep it simple, and you don't need to, it's the next step. What's the next step? And then the next step and the next step. And if I were to summarize this, even for our leaders of transformation that are listening and tuning in, is I always say, take action. Take action on something that you learn, because like we just said, knowledge on its own is useless. In fact, it's just more overwhelming to us, and we actually need less of that nowadays rather than more of that. So taking action on something that you said is, becoming aware of your emotions, breaking the pattern, choosing to break the pattern and do something different. And then even what you also mentioned is having that vision. I think, and I've been in very, shall we say, dark places or low places in my life. And sometimes it's hard to envision what you want. You know what you don't want, but it's also at the same time, it's not just focusing on what you don't want, because what we focus on, we expands. It's then what you were also talking about is it's envisioning and saying, you know what, I deserve more. I want to feel this way. So it's choosing and actually creating that picture or that vision for yourself, or concept of what it is that you actually want to experience, what you desire to experience. And then you know what you're moving towards, as opposed to simply trying to avoid something. So many great nuggets. And I really, really appreciate you being here with us.
I appreciate being with you. I love your community. You have incredible people there. I was been looking forward to this interview, like you said, for months, because I really love what you do, and the people that you attract. And you connected me to some of them, all amazing individuals, very powerful, people who changing the world. And it's just an honor for me to be part of it and to be interviewed by you. Thank you for having me.
Oh, it's been a pleasure. And thank you even for being part of our community. Yeah, I love the people. You mentioned about gratitude. Gratitude is a big piece. For those of you listening, you want to have more amazing people around you, give gratitude, and you attract more of who you are and what you put out. It comes back to you. So, and I've certainly been a testament to that and grateful for that. So I encourage you to go on leadersoftransformation.com and get the show notes. Make sure you access Masha Malka. It's also on her website, mashamalka.com. Access the compilation of her chapters, and make sure you get a copy of her book after that. And we look forward to hearing your feedback. You can find us on social media as well. Send us a message. Let us know how this has impacted you, because that I love to hear those stories, because it encourages me that this is really, truly making a difference, which is what it's intended to do. So we encourage you to do that. We thank you, and we look forward to seeing you in the next episode of Leaders of Transformation real soon.